I love making Gothic button-eyed dolls, but I also love painting. So this week I'm bringing the two together and making a creepy cute art doll with a dark feminine feel. I'm also going to be trying out a new doll hair made from roses and dealing with some of the challenges that come with working as an artist on a canal boat. If you just found me, by the way, welcome. My name's Jo. I'm a full-time artist based on a narrowboat in Wales. I'm starting with a silver grey cotton for the skin fabric for a bit of a ghostly complexion, and some black and white stripes for the legs. I've used a 25cm template for this one, so she'll be a bit larger than the dolls I've made recently. She'll be about 10 inches tall. I'm stuffing the pieces with polyester staple fibre, which is a bit denser than standard fibre fill. They need to be stuffed really firmly to provide a nice stable base for the joints. The key to getting this stuffing even and avoiding lumps is to add a little at a time and try and keep it going in a constant stream, pushing it out towards the edges first, then filling it in from the centre. Having a few stuffing tools on hand makes it easy to get it right into those little corners. I close all the seams with ladder stitch using some top stitch thread. When it comes to hand sewing, ladder stitch is a stitch I use most in doll making. I don't always get this perfect, but if you try and keep the stitches as small as you can and make them parallel so they line up like the rungs of a ladder, you should end up with a nice neat closure with no visible stitches. I'm bead jointing all the limbs with some antique silver effect metal beads. Because this is a large size doll, finding beads the right size was a bit of a challenge. I tried to get the beads either the same width or just slightly smaller than the width of the limb. If I can't find beads large enough, sometimes it's easier just to alter the template and reduce the width of the limb slightly so they fit better. These are a pretty good fit though, so I think I might have adjusted this template the last time I used it. The neck is going to be button jointed, so the head will tilt from side to side. I anchor the joint with a button on the back of the torso where it'll be hidden under the bodice. Then I take the thread up through the neck and the head and anchor it to another button on the crown. That button will be hidden under the hair. Then I bring the thread all the way back down to the first button. I make sure the tension's right so the head will move freely without falling to the side, then fasten it off. Before I do anything else, I want to make a start on the face. I'm shading around the eye area with ChromaFlow pencils. I want to get this as dark and as smooth as I can, so I'm using black and obsidian green, building the pigment up little by little and blending in between coats with a blending pencil. Sometimes after a few coats it feels like the surface gets a bit shiny and it won't take any more pigment, but if you give it a coat of fixative spray and allow it to dry, then you can add more coloured pencil over the top. Then it just needs a couple of coats of fixative to stop it smudging. While the fixative dries, I'm going to paint some boots. This is where I remember I should have done this before I attached the legs to the body. It's a lot easier to paint pieces like this when they're separate, but I'm not taking it apart again now, so I'll just have to be extra careful not to get splodges of paint on the rest of the doll. I'm using acrylics for this with some fabric medium mixed in. The first coat is a mix of titanium white and black, so it's nice and opaque to cover those stripes. Then I want to create a gradient from black to grey over the top. By the way, if you're enjoying watching this doll take shape, don't forget to hit the like button and let me know. You can also subscribe if you like so you don't miss the next one. This doll is already sold, but if you'd like to support my work, there should be some links to other dolls and paintings I have available below the video. I want to paint the dress with some creeping vines later, so I thought it'd be fun to paint a bit of a leafy design on the boots too. It's very, very warm in the UK as I'm recording this, and I'm basically sitting in a metal box, so it's quite hot in here. The paint was kind of drying on the brush in the heat, so I've added a bit of slow dry medium to help it go on a bit smoother. This does make the paint a bit more transparent, so I reckon it'll need a couple of coats, but at least I can paint those fine lines without it drying up. I don't know what sort of flower this is, I'm kind of making it up as I go along, but it kind of reminds me a bit of honeysuckle. I go over the patchy bits to make sure the white's all nice and even, then I'll give it a blast with a hairdryer to make sure it's properly dry before I varnish it. The varnish I'm using to seal the acrylics is a satin finish polyurethane one from Vallejo. I think that's how you pronounce the name. I will put some links to the art materials I use in the description. I've picked out some antique silver finish metal buttons for the eyes. I think these will create a really nice contrast against the dark shading. I secure the buttons from the back of the head so they sit nice and tight to the face. Those knots and stitches on the back will be hidden under the hair. I've always preferred the look of 4-hole coat buttons for the eyes. 2-hole buttons would be easier to sew on, but for me they just don't have the same appeal. I don't know what it is about the 4 holes, but it just looks right. I'm drawing on the line detail with fine liner pens. The slightly larger size means I can add a bit more detail on this one. I think I'm going to make the eyeliner into some creeping curling vines with a few leaves here and there. I might even add some white highlights in acrylics later. I've made a skirt from black cotton and pleated some broderie anglaise around the hem. I'm going to paint some vines on the dress, similar to the design on the boots, so I've masked out along the trim at the bottom and across the top where it'll be tucked in at the waist, so I can easily see where I need to place the design. I started out with titanium white mixed with fabric medium, but it was still drying on the brush a bit and I was struggling to get a smooth line. So again, I ended up adding some slow dry medium. I think some flow enhancer would have helped, but I've no idea how that behaves on fabric, so I'll have to do some tests and maybe try that next time. That will need drying and heat setting, and then I can stitch it onto the doll. I've painted a few leaves on the left arm. I want to continue the design across the shoulder onto the bodice. But first I need to attach the arms so I can see where I need to paint. The shoulders are jointed with a thread going right through the body from one side to the other and through the beads at the top of the arms a couple of times. This gives the shoulder joints lots of flexibility. I fasten off the thread on the upper back underneath the bodice, then it's back to painting. If you suffer from seasickness, look away now. The trouble with working as an artist on a boat is they do tend to move sometimes, especially when other boats are moving around me. It's suddenly got really busy out there, not ideal when I'm trying to paint. I might have to come back to this later. So I eventually managed to finish painting the dress. Now she just needs hair. If you saw my video about vegan doll making materials, you'll have seen this doll hair. This is rose fibre and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm not entirely sure which part of the rose plant it's made from, but it's incredibly soft and silky and it has a lovely sheen. I'd say it's a little bit finer than bamboo roving. I've never needle felted with this before, so I'm going slowly at first with 2 needles. And then if it seems to be felting in okay, I'll try it with 3 needles. I'm using the Clover pen style felting tool with 38 gauge triangular needles, being really careful to felt around those stitches. I don't want any broken needles today. This is actually felting in quite easily. It's quite similar to bamboo to work with, but I think some of the fibres are a bit shorter, so it is shedding a little bit. That's not a major issue though, most of the fibre is staying put. I think if I use this again, I'll keep the strands shorter to minimise waste. I've named this little one Aster Night Bloom. She reminds me of those mystical late summer nights as the season edges ever so slowly into autumn. The soft glow of moonlight, the gentle breeze that gives you goosebumps, the scent of honeysuckle, and the flutter of moths around a pale flickering candle flame. If you'd like to know more about the materials I use in my art dolls, I'll put a video here that you can go and watch now, and I'll see you next time. Bye!